I never thought a simple walk to my car would change everything. But there it was, a blinding green slip flapping under my windshield wiper, screaming violation notice. My first thought, mistake. My lawn was trimmed, my property spotless. Then I heard it. The sharp click-clack of heels on pavement. Good morning, a too-sweet voice chimed. Karen Mitchell. Our neighborhood's self-appointed enforcer. Tablet in hand, eager to pounce. Your grass is too tall, she declared, barely looking up. Then, with a smirk, she added, oh, and those gnomes? Not on the approved decoration list. Those weren't just decorations. They were my late wife's. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about keeping the neighborhood pristine. It was about power. And Karen was targeting the very people who kept this community safe. Firefighters, nurses, teachers. What she didn't know. I'm the chief of police. And when I started digging, I found something much darker than HOA fines. I tried to shake it off. It was just a $79 fine, right? Pay it, move on. But something gnawed at me. My lawn looked the same as it had for years. Clean, well-kept, healthy. And those gnomes. They weren't clutter. They were memories. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was hunting. As I watched her tap away at her tablet, documenting every inch of my property, I spotted her next target, Sarah, my neighbor. An ER nurse, just home from a 16-hour shift. Too exhausted to deal with another citation. Sarah had barely parked before Karen swooped in, snapping photos of her trash bins left out too long. It hit me. This wasn't about aesthetics. It was selective enforcement. I climbed into my car and scrolled through our neighborhood's Facebook group. Same pattern. Mark, a firefighter, fined for his kid's basketball hoop. The elderly couple across the street, penalized for rose bushes. Even our local teacher, cited because his car was too old for Karen's perfect little vision. It was a pattern. And I was done ignoring it. Then came the escalation. 2 days later, I came home from a brutal double shift, bank robbery downtown, hours of paperwork. Running on fumes, I just wanted to park, shower, sleep. Instead, my driveway was blocked. 2 black SUVs. For security slapped on the sides in bold letters. Karen stood in my yard, her designer suit pristine, her smirk sharper than ever. She was taking pictures of my house, my mailbox, my garden hose. Even my welcome mat. I got out, calm but firm. Move your cars. Now. Karen turned, nails tapping against her tablet. You still haven't paid your fine. And now. She scrolled dramatically. Non-regulation mailbox color. I laughed, but my patience was razor thin. The mailbox has been white for 15 years. She flashed a fake smile. According to last week's updates, all mailboxes must be painted pristine pearl white from the Anderson paint collection. Yours is classic white. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. Then I noticed something off. The security officers leaning against their SUVs. Their badges looked almost real. But not quite. Their uniforms didn't match any licensed firms in the area. My gut told me something bigger was happening. Back at my office, I did what I do best. I investigated. First stop. The city's business license database. 3 taps. Nothing. No record of Karen's security company. No licensing. Not even an address. Then came the HOA's financial reports. Thousands of dollars in fines, collected in just 3 months. But the kicker. Almost all of it went to Karen's brother's security company. Now I was pissed. The next morning, the evidence kept piling up. Sarah, who had worked through a disaster-level bus crash the night before, came to me, hand shaking. Chief, they put a lien on my house. Over trash bins. I looked at the stack of orange violations she handed me. Dozens of fines. A firefighter. Cited for a hoop that had been there for 5 years. A family. Fined for Christmas lights left up 2 days too long. These weren't random citations. They were targeted. That night, I spread out the complaints like pieces of a puzzle. The pattern was clear. First responders. Shift workers. Essential employees. The people who couldn't fight back. Karen had built a system to exploit them, then my phone buzzed. A message from my deputy chief. Remember that city flooding last spring? Guess who got the drainage repair contract? Karen's brother. Charged triple the usual rate. I leaned back in my chair, fists clenched. This wasn't just petty fines and power trips. This was corruption. And I was going to bring her down. The night after I connected the dots, sleep was out of the question. Karen wasn't just a power-hungry HOA tyrant, she was running a racket. Unlicensed security, fraudulent fines, rigged contracts. And now, she was pushing for even more control. But she had no idea who she was playing with. By morning, I had a plan. I started where any good cop would, surveillance. Not the kind Karen did with her illegally installed street cameras, but the kind that gets real answers. First stop, the security firm. A quick drive downtown led me to the address on their website. Except, there was no office. Just an abandoned strip mall, boarded up and covered in graffiti. No employees. No equipment. Nothing. It was a ghost company. Back at the station, I dug deeper. The firm had no state business ID, no payroll records, not even a tax filing. But the kicker. The listed phone number forwarded to a burner cell, one that had made exactly one call in the last month. To Karen Mitchell. Bingo. Next stop, the paper trail. I called in a favor from a buddy at City Hall, someone who had seen enough shady deals to smell one a mile away. Tell me you have something good, I said. He laughed. Oh, I've got gold. Minutes later, an email landed in my inbox. Karen's brother's security company had raked in over $500,000 from the HOA in a single year. Half of it was classified under administrative expenses. Translation: money laundering. She wasn't just stealing from the residents. She was funneling it right into her family's pockets. Then came the final straw. An elderly widow, Mrs. Jenkins, knocked on my door, voice trembling. They put cameras on the streetlights today, she whispered. I frowned. Who approved them? She shook her head. Karen said it's for safety, but they're all pointed at our houses. Illegal surveillance. I clenched my jaw. That was it. It was time to burn Karen's empire to the ground. The perfect opportunity landed in my lap the next day, a neighborhood-wide HOA meeting. Karen's big night. She'd be standing in front of the whole community, asking for more security funding, more guards, more cameras. What she didn't know, I'd be there too. And I wasn't coming alone. The HOA meeting was packed. Residents filled every chair, standing along the walls, whispering among themselves. Tension buzzed in the air. Karen stood at the front, exuding fake confidence, her designer suit crisp, her ever-present tablet in hand. She had no idea what was coming. I stayed near the back, watching. Karen launched into her speech, all charm and manipulation. Our neighborhood must remain a safe haven, she purred. That's why we need stricter enforcement, additional security personnel, and more surveillance too. I stood up. Or maybe we need less corruption. The room went silent. Karen's eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw something new, uncertainty. What are you talking about? She snapped. I took my time, stepping forward. I did some digging. Karen, your brother's security company doesn't exist. Not legally. No business license, no tax records, no office. And yet, it's collected over $500,000 in HOA fees. Murmurs erupted in the crowd. Karen's face paled, but she forced a laugh. This is ridiculous. Is it? I pulled a stack of printed documents from my folder. Because I've got financial records, showing HOA fines funneling straight into your family's pockets. That lien you put on Sarah's house? Illegal. The fake security officers you hired? Unlicensed. And those cameras? Illegal surveillance. Gasps. A few residents turned to each other, whispering. A man in the front row, the HOA president, rubbed his temples. Karen, he said slowly, is this true? She gripped her tablet tighter. This is an outrageous attack. Then explain this. I tossed the financial records onto the table in front of her. She barely glanced at them before scoffing. This meeting is over. She grabbed her bag, ready to bolt. But the HOA president stood. No, Karen. You're done. The door behind her clicked shut. Two uniformed officers, real ones, my officers, stepped inside. Karen Mitchell, one of them announced. You're under investigation for fraud, illegal surveillance, and financial misconduct. Her face twisted in rage. You can't. This is my community. I make the rules. Not anymore, I said. She tried to push past the officers, but they blocked her path. The residents stood frozen, watching as their self-appointed dictator was escorted out. The room was silent for a beat. Then, one by one, people began to clap. The tyrant had fallen. Karen was gone. Just like that, the reign of terror had ended. But the damage she left behind? That would take time to fix. The morning after the HOA meeting, I stepped outside with my coffee. The air felt different, lighter. For the first time in months, the neighborhood wasn't filled with fear. No black SUVs lurking at corners. No Karen patrolling with her tablet. Just kids riding bikes, neighbors chatting over fences. Normal. Sarah walked over, holding a thick stack of paperwork. "Chief, I got this in the mail this morning." She handed it to me, an official notice from the county. The lien on her house was lifted. "Looks like the HOA is scrambling to clean up a mess," I said. "They should be," she huffed. I called the city. Turns out a lot of those citations were completely invalid. People are getting refunds. Good. It wasn't justice yet, but it was a start. A week later, the HOA held a special election. The residents made it clear they wanted change. The old board was dissolved, and for the first time, the community voted in people who actually cared. Mark, the firefighter, took over as president. Sarah was elected treasurer. And as for me, they wanted me on the board too. I declined. I already had a job protecting this town. But I promised to keep an eye on things, make sure no one like Karen ever got that kind of power again. As I stood on my porch that evening, watching kids shoot hoops in Mark's driveway, without fear of a citation, Sarah's daughter ran up to me, beaming. She held out a new drawing. This time, it was our whole neighborhood, colorful and happy. Right in the center, she'd drawn me, not in uniform, just standing among my neighbors. "Mom said you're a hero," she said shyly. I smiled, taking the picture. Nah. Just someone who believes in doing what's right. The sun set over a free neighborhood, the laughter of families filling the air. Karen was gone. The corruption was exposed. And our community, it finally had its voice back.